Adrian Moretti thought his curvy wife hated every dress he bought her. 6 beautiful gowns came back unopened, and each return felt like another silent rejection. Then, one rainy night outside a fitting room, the Mafia Boss overheard the truth. Emily loved every dress. She had only been returning them because someone had convinced her she was too big to stand proudly beside him. Rain dragged silver lines down the windows of Adrian Moretti's office, 48 floors above downtown Chicago. Below, headlights blurred across wet streets. A knock came at the door. His assistant, Marcus Hale, entered carrying a long black garment box tied with satin ribbon. He placed it on Adrian's desk with the careful expression of a man delivering bad news. Adrian looked at the box. "What is that?" "The midnight blue gown, sir." "I know what it is." Marcus hesitated. "It was returned this afternoon." For several seconds, only the rain spoke. Adrian leaned back. He had chosen that dress himself. 3 weeks earlier, Emily had stopped beside a window on Oak Street and said that midnight blue made winter feel elegant. She had not known he was listening. "That's 6, Marcus said. 6 returns in 2 months. Emerald silk, burgundy velvet, champagne satin, black crepe, sapphire, chiffon, now midnight blue couture." Every dress had been chosen because of something Emily once said she liked. Everyone had come back. No complaint, no explanation. The first time Adrian assumed the fit was wrong. The second, he blamed the designer. By the fourth, irritation had replaced confusion. By the 6th, something colder had settled beneath his ribs. Did she say why? "No," Mrs. Moretti said. "It's beautiful. Please send it back." That was all. Adrian stared at the box 2 months into their marriage. Emily still worked at a restoration studio 3 days a week and insisted on paying for her own coffee, even though his name sat on buildings across Chicago. She was warm with the staff and unexpectedly funny when she forgot to guard herself. But whenever he placed something expensive in her hands, a wall appeared, especially with dresses. He opened the box. The gown lay beneath tissue paper, dark blue fabric, catching the grey light like deep water. It had been cut specifically for Emily's figure, meant to move with her, rather than hide her. Adrian could already imagine her in it. That thought irritated him more than the return. "Send it back to the penthouse," he said. Marcus blinked again. "Put it in her dressing room. She'll return it." Adrian looked up. Marcus wisely stopped speaking. By 7 that evening, the rain had turned colder. Bellingham, Chicago, glowed above the river in polished golden glass, its lobby filled with piano music and the soft clink of crystal. Moretti Foundation donors were gathering upstairs before the winter benefit. Adrian had come because Emily was scheduled for a fitting, and Vanessa Whitmore had insisted photographs needed approval. Vanessa had lived in the Moretti orbit for years. Born into money, she ran the foundation's public image with ruthless efficiency. People had once assumed she would become Mrs. Moretti. Adrienne had never encouraged the idea. Vanessa had never entirely abandoned it. He stepped off the elevator on the private events floor and walked toward the fitting suites. He heard Vanessa before he saw her. Her voice came through a door that had not fully closed. "I don't understand why you keep making this difficult." Then Emily's voice. "I didn't ask for any of this." Adrian stopped. Vanessa sighed as if she were being patient. "Emily, I'm trying to help you." Silence. "You can return every dress he buys you, sweetheart. Fabric doesn't change what people see when you walk into a room beside Adrian Moretti. Inside, the wheels of a garment rack squeaked across hardwood. Vanessa continued. He gets photographed beside senators, CEOs, women who understand what his world expects. Every time you wear one of those gowns, people compare you. Emily said nothing. They don't say it to your face because you're his wife, Vanessa added. They say it where he can't hear them. Adrian's hand slowly closed at his side. Hearing Vanessa take apart his wife, one careful sentence at a time, produced an anger so sharp it almost became calm. "Stop," another woman whispered from inside. Vanessa ignored her. "You know what they call those dresses, don't you?" Emily finally spoke. "Vanessa, the pity wardrobe." Silence. Vanessa's voice lowered. "They think Adrian keeps them because he's trying to prove something. That if the dress costs enough, no one will notice how much bigger you are than every woman who used to stand beside him." Adrian took one step toward the door. Then he heard Emily breathe in. Not a sob. Something quieter, the sound of a person trying very hard not to let anyone know she had been hurt. When Emily answered, her voice was almost steady. "I know." 2 words stopped Adrian more effectively than any threat ever had. Not outrage, not disbelief. Acceptance. Emily believed her. Through the narrow opening, he could see part of the room. Emily stood before a tall mirror in a simple black slip. Her soft arms folded across her middle. The midnight blue gown hung beside her. For one brief second, Emily reached toward it. Her fingers touched the sleeve. Then she pulled her hand back. Vanessa watched her through the mirror. "There is a private group chat," she said. "Weaves donors, 2 people from the board. You do not want to see it." Emily's face lost what little color it had. What group chat? Vanessa's smile was small. "The one Adrian can never know you saw." Adrian went perfectly still outside the door. So this was not careless cruelty. There were photographs, messages, people inside his own circle, and Vanessa knew exactly where to find them. Inside, Emily whispered, "Show me." Vanessa unlocked her phone. Adrien did not enter. Not yet. For the first time that night, his anger gave way to something colder and far more useful. Suspicion. He stepped back into the shadow beside the door and listened as Vanessa began reading names. That was how Adrian understood the story now. But 3 months earlier, before the returned dresses and the whispers, Emily Carter had been nothing more than a name on a repair invoice. On a wet November night, the streets behind Chicago's theater district shone with rain neon. Most costume shops had gone dark, but a narrow second-floor studio above an old coffeehouse still glowed under fluorescent lights. Emily sat alone at a scarred cutting table, guiding black silk beneath an industrial sewing machine. At 29, she knew people often judged a woman's body before they noticed what her hands could do. She was curvy, broad-hipped, soft through the waist, and used to saleswomen checking her size before meeting her eyes. So she built a life around work that demanded precision instead of approval. Her specialty was restoration. Vintage gowns, damaged tuxedos, theater costumes, heirloom coats. 3 hard knocks rattled the downstairs door. Emily looked at the clock, 11:17 p.m. She slid a pair of dress macaca shears within reach and went downstairs. 2 black SUVs idled at the curb. A tall man in a dark overcoat stood beneath the awning, another man beside him. Emily opened the door a few inches. "We're closed." The taller man looked at her. Emily Carter. Depends who's asking. Adrian Moretti. Even people who avoided gossip knew the Moretti name, and the quieter rumours attached to it. Emily glanced at the SUVs. That doesn't make us less closed. The second man coughed to hide a laugh. Adrian removed a folded tuxedo jacket from beneath his coat. The left side was torn, near the ribs. A dark stain dried along the lining. I need this repaired tonight. Within the hour, Emily examined the wool, hand-finished lapels, full canvas. The tear ran through the outer fabric and into the interior layers, narrow and strangely directional. I need 40 minutes. You have 30? Then take it somewhere else. Rain hissed against the sidewalk. Finally, Adrian said, 40. Emily walked upstairs. They followed. The second man introduced himself as Marcus Hale, Adrian's executive assistant. He stayed near the door, while Adrian stood beside the cutting table. Under the task lamp, Emily opened the damaged lining one stitch at a time. The stain was not wine or rust. She knew what it was, but she also knew when a question was worth asking. You don't seem curious, Adrian said. Curiosity doesn't pay my insurance. Most people would ask what happened. Most people ruin old wool with too much steam. The corner of Marcus's mouth moved. Emily separated the canvas from the fabric. Something metallic clicked against the table. A tiny, flattened fragment gleamed beneath the lamp. Marcus moved first. Don't touch it. Emily had already lifted it with tweezers. It was embedded in the canvas. Adrian's gaze sharpened. Whatever tore this jacket came from outside in, Emily said. And that isn't glass. No, Marcus said. Emily looked at Adrian. You told someone this happened in a car accident, didn't you? He said nothing. The tearing doesn't match glass. This travelled in one direction, hit something hard enough to flatten, then stopped inside the jacket. Marcus produced an evidence bag that bothered Emily more than the fragment. She handed it over. Adrian studied her. You're very calm. I restore clothes for theatres people. You'd be surprised what arrives here after midnight. This isn't a costume. No, that's why I'm not pretending I didn't notice. For the first time, he truly looked at her, not at her size. At her, Emily returned to work. She reinforced the canvas, matched the thread by hand, then closed the lining with stitches so fine they nearly vanished. 42 minutes later, she held it out. You'll always know where it was damaged, she said. No one else will. Adrian slipped it on. The repair disappeared when the wool settled across him. Marcus stared. That's impressive. That's the job. Adrian asked, How much? Emily named the normal emergency rate. He placed several hundred more on the table. She took exactly what he owed and pushed the rest back. I said, That's the price. You stayed open. You needed a repair. I repaired it. Adrian was accustomed to people wanting money, access, protection, favours. Emily only wanted him to stop cluttering her table. At this, he paused. If anyone asks about tonight, I fixed a tuxedo and the metal. She returned to her opera cape. What metal? For a second, Adrian almost smiled. Then the SUVs vanished into the rain. Emily assumed that was the end of it. It wasn't. The fragment gave Adrian's security team the first useful clue from the failed ambush. Marcus traced it to a falsified warehouse purchase order, exposing an internal leak before another attack could be planned. Adrian never told Emily what her observation had prevented. But he remembered her. He remembered the woman who had found what trained men missed, asked for no reward, and treated a man feared across Chicago like any other customer who needed his jacket repaired. 2 weeks later, Emily arrived at the studio before sunrise and found Marcus beside a black sedan. She stopped on the sidewalk, coffee in hand. If Mr. Moretti tore another suit, normal business hours start at 9. No, Zuro. No suit? Why are you here? He wants your professional opinion on what? Marcus opened the rear door. Something no one outside the Moretti family has been allowed to touch in 10 years. Emily's humor vanished across town behind the iron gates of the Moretti estate in Lake Forest. A locked room was being opened for the first time in a decade, and Adrienne Moretti was waiting for her inside. Emily stepped from the sedan into a pale winter morning. The estate rose beyond bare oaks, like a fortress of grey stone and black iron. Marcus led her through the silent foyer into the east wing. Adrienne stood beside a narrow, walnut door. You called me to look at clothes, Emily asked. Not just clothes. He unlocked the door. The room smelled faintly of cedar, lavender, and years without sunlight. Garment bags lined one wall. Hat boxes rose in careful stacks. A vanity still held a silver-backed brush and pearl earrings exactly where someone had left them. Emily understood your mother's. Adrienne nodded. Lucia. He opened a wardrobe filled with silk gowns, tailored suits, and embroidered coats. The foundation wants an exhibit this spring, he said. My advisors suggested auctioning part of the collection afterward, and you don't want to. His eyes moved to her. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Emily put on cotton gloves and began examining the nearest gown. Adrienne watched in silence. Other experts had talked about designers and auction estimates. Emily asked, which one did she love? The question stopped him. What? Which dress did she actually love wearing? After a moment, Adrienne pointed to a simple navy silk dress hidden behind 2 elaborate gowns. That one. Emily lifted it from the rack. The silk was softened from use. The cuffs had been repaired by hand. She wore it to family dinners. Adrienne said, My father hated it. Why? He thought it looked too plain. Emily smiled. Maybe that's why she loved it. She turned one sleeve over and found uneven stitches near the cuff. Someone repaired this at home. My mother, you can tell. She was terrible at sewing. Emily laughed before she could stop herself. Then Adrienne surprised her by smiling. My father used to say she could run a charity gala for 500 people and still lose a fight with a button. Emily touched the crooked stitches. I'd keep these. They're bad. They're hers. Adrienne fell quiet. Restoration isn't about making something look untouched, Emily said. If I erase every imperfect repair, I erase the evidence that someone lived in it. His gaze dropped to the dress. My father wanted everything perfect. Most people do, and you don't. Emily looked around the room. Perfect things make terrible memories. For the next hour, she found weakened seams, brittle thread, and moth damage throughout the collection. Then she opened a cedar chest and found a charcoal wool coat. Adrienne moved at once. Careful, Emily paused. My father's, he said. One pocket had been crudely repaired in black thread that did not match. Your mother again? No, my father repaired that himself. Emily looked up. He died not long after. Nothing more. Emily did not ask. She knew grief well enough to recognize when someone had already said all he could. I can reinforce it from underneath, she said. The original stitches will stay visible. Wouldn't it be cleaner to redo them? Yes. Then why not? Because he put them there. Emily met his eyes. You don't have to fix every mark someone leaves behind. Something shifted in Adrienne's expression. For Adrienne, damage meant removal. Weakness was hidden. Mistakes were corrected until no trace remained. Emily was offering another idea. Some scars were proof that something had survived. A knock sounded. Marcus opened the door. Adrienne. Daniel Price is here. Adrienne's jaw tightened. Tell him 10 minutes. He says it can't wait. Emily began returning the coat to its tissue. I can finish alone. At the door, Adrienne looked back. Don't change the stitches. She smiled. I wasn't going to. He left. Emily worked another 40 minutes before packing her tools. In the corridor, voices carried from around the corner. Daniel Price, the Moretti family's chief attorney, spoke in a low, urgent tone. The board moved the vote forward to when? Adrienne asked. 8 weeks. Whitmore is pushing the stability clause. What stability clause? The one your grandfather buried in the trust. If the board decides federal scrutiny threatens the legitimate companies, they can freeze your voting authority. Adrienne's voice hardened. What does my private life have to do with corporate control? More than it should? Emily slowed. Daniel continued. They want proof you're building something stable. Adrienne gave a humorless laugh. Define stable. A pause. Then Daniel said, a credible marriage. Emily stood still, behind the corner, tool case in hand. The word felt absurd beside federal scrutiny. Adrienne said they're serious. Michael Whitmore has enough influence to make them serious. If the board freezes your authority, everything becomes vulnerable, and your solution is that I get married. My solution is that you give them no opening. Emily quietly backed away before either man could discover her. She reached the staircase and let out a slow breath. Minutes earlier, she had told Adrienne not every scar needed to disappear. Now she understood his world turned scars into leverage. Emily left the estate, believing the problem had nothing to do with her. She was wrong. Before her sedan reached the end of the driveway, Daniel looked through the library windows. There is one other problem. Adrienne turned. The board won't believe a sudden marriage to a society woman. They'll call it a deal. Daniel glanced toward the disappearing car. It has to be someone they would believe you chose. Adrienne followed his gaze. For the first time, Emily Carter's name entered a conversation that could determine the future of the Moretti Empire. Daniel Price closed the library door. The board expects some AIs whose father wants your ports. They won't believe it. Emily has no family connection to the syndicate and no interest in your influence. Adrienne turned toward the snowy windows. She's not part of this. She could be. She'll say no. Then ask. If you force anything, they see a transaction. If she chooses, they see a marriage. Adrienne looked at him coldly. I don't force women into marriages. Good. Give her a door. 3 days later, Emily entered the Moretti corporate offices in the Loop, carrying her canvas work bag instead of a designer purse. Glass walls, black stone, and a grey Chicago skyline made the top floor feel built to intimidate. Adrienne waited in a conference room with Daniel. Emily saw the legal folder. If this is about the restoration contract, I sent the estimate. It isn't, Adrienne said. That is never comforting when a lawyer is present. He gestured to a chair. Emily remained standing. Say it first. I need a wife for 1 year. Silence. Then Emily laughed. Actually laughed. Adrienne's eyes narrowed. You're serious? Yes, that makes it worse. Daniel started. There are corporate reasons. I'm sure there are. Emily looked directly at Adrienne. Why me? Because the board would believe I chose you. You mean they'd believe you love me? No. The answer came too quickly. Something small changed in her face. And Adrian noticed. He corrected himself. They would believe the choice was real. You have your own work. You don't want my money or access to my circle. You say that like a medical condition. It's rare. Emily finally sat, but did not touch the contract. What do I get? Daniel answered carefully. Your father's house is in pre-foreclosure. Her shoulders stiffened. How do you know that? We performed due diligence. You investigated me. Yes. Emily stood again. Adrian spoke before she reached the door. No one will touch the house. That sounds very close to buying me. Then forget the house. She stopped. He opened the folder. Your restoration studio is carrying commercial debt. 8 people depend on it. I can invest at market terms. Documented equity. Independent counsel. You keep operational control. And if I refuse, nothing happens. She studied him. My house still your problem? My studio still yours? You won't call the bank my landlord, or anyone else? No, Daniel added. The agreement gives you the right to terminate at any time without financial penalty. Emily slowly returned to the table. 1 year, maximum, separate finances. Yes, my work continues. Yes, I choose where I go, what I wear, and who I see. Adrian answered. Yes. No staff reporting what I eat. No security following me into fitting rooms. No one deciding which friends are acceptable. A pause. If there is a credible threat, Adrian said, I tell you, then we decide together. That surprised both Emily and Daniel. She read every page. She crossed out 2 clauses, rewrote another, then tap-tapped a paragraph labeled Reasonable Public Cooperation. Define reasonable? Daniel glanced at Adrian. Emily raised an eyebrow. If I'm pretending to be married to a mafia boss, I want fewer vague words. The corner of Adrian's mouth almost moved. By the end of the meeting, there was still no signature. I need 48 hours, Emily said. You have them outside. Winter wind knifed between the towers. Emily walked beneath the elevated tracks before calling Nora, her studio manager. How bad is it? A long silence. Maybe 6 weeks before we have to let someone go. Emily closed her eyes. She pictured Rosa, who sent money to her mother every month. Ben, whose daughter had been born in September. Mr. Alvarez, 68, and still the best hand-seer in the studio. 8 people had trusted Emily. She could not let them become invisible, too. The next afternoon, she returned to Adrian's office. This time, he was alone. She put the amended contract on his desk. I have one condition that isn't written there. Adrian waited. You do not get to treat me like something you purchased. I won't. You do not use the investment when we disagree. I won't. And if I say no, you hear no. His gaze held hers. Yes. Only then did Emily pick up the pen. You're not buying me, Adrian. You're renting a role. I understand, she signed. 16 days later. They married in a small stone chapel overlooking Lake Michigan. There were no reporters or orchestra, only Daniel, Marcus, a few Moretti relatives, and discreet security. Emily wore an ivory tea-length dress she had altered herself. Adrian watched her walk down the aisle and felt something different from relief. Emily noticed it too, the way his expression softened for half a second when she reached him. Then she saw the woman in the first row, tall, elegant, blonde, dressed in a white suit, sharp enough to look deliberate. The stranger watched Emily with a smile that never reached her eyes. During the vows, Emily felt that stare outside Lake Michigan was steel grey. As Adrian spoke quietly with Daniel, Marcus came beside Emily. "You know who that was?" Emily watched the blonde woman step toward a waiting sedan. "No." Marcus hesitated. "Vanessa Whitmore. She runs the Moretti Foundation." Emily waited. Marcus lowered his voice. "For years, half this city assumed she would become Mrs. Moretti." Across the drive, Vanessa paused before entering her car. Her eyes found Emily's. Then she smiled again. For the first time since signing the contract, Emily wondered whether she had agreed to play a role someone else already believed belonged to her. Marriage to Adrian Moretti was quieter than Emily expected. He left before sunrise most mornings, and often returned after midnight, bringing the cold city in with him. Rain on his coat, expensive cologne, and cigarette smoke from rooms where men spoke in low voices. Emily kept working 3 days a week at the restoration studio. The rest of her time was divided between the Moretti Foundation, formal dinners, and life inside a penthouse where every surface gleamed. The staff treated Adrian with careful efficiency. Emily noticed something else. They were afraid to inconvenience him. One Wednesday night, she came home late carrying a garment bag and found a plate of untouched pasta outside his study. The sauce had gone cold. She knocked once, then opened the door. Adrian sat behind his desk with 3 phones, 2 open files, and a map of shipping routes glowing across a wall screen. "You forgot dinner." "I'm working." "So is everyone else in Chicago." His eyes lifted. Emily set the plate near his hand and placed a fork on top. "Cold pasta is still better than no dinner. I'm not hungry. That's between you and the pasta." She left before he could answer. The next morning, the plate was empty. Emily said nothing. Neither did Adrian. But the following night, a mug of tea sat beside her sewing case. No note. She looked toward his closed office door and smiled. A week later, the estate gardener, Mr. Keller, slipped on black ice near the courtyard. Emily saw him fall from the kitchen window. By the time security reached him, she was already kneeling in the snow beside the 68-year-old man. "We'll call the private physician," one guard said. "He hit his head," Emily replied. "We are going to the hospital." "Mrs. Moretti. Protocol says." "Protocol can meet us at Northwestern." She rode with him. Adrian found her at 2:00 in the morning, beneath the white lights of the emergency department, still wearing her wool coat over pajamas, a paper cup of coffee cooling between her hands. "You came yourself." He was scared. "I have stuff for this." So did he. Adrian frowned. "His daughter lives in Arizona," Emily said. "His wife died last year. He didn't want to be alone." Mr. Keller was released before dawn, with a fractured wrist and a mild concussion. Adrian offered Emily a bonus when they returned home. She stared at him. "For what?" "For handling the situation." "I took an injured man to the hospital." "Yes, that is not a premium service." He looked genuinely confused. Emily shook her head. "You can't put everything on an invoice, Adrian." He remembered the way she greeted the doorman by name, knew which driver had a newborn son, and carried coffee to the night guards during a freezing shift. In Adrian's world, generosity usually came with leverage. Emily seemed to have missed that lesson entirely. That was why, 2 weeks later, he made a mistake. She came home from the studio and opened her dressing room. Every rack had changed. Her jeans, cardigans, work dresses, and comfortable sweaters were gone. In their place hung silk blouses, designer trousers, cashmere coats, evening dresses, and shoes arranged in perfect rows. Emily stared. Adrienne appeared behind her. I had the sizes adjusted. She turned slowly. Where are my clothes? Storage. You moved my clothes. I replaced them. Her expression changed. Not gratitude. Anger. Why? The things you wear are worn out. Some of them are. You can afford better. You mean you can? Adrienne's jaw tightened. Does that matter? Yes. I'm not insulting you. I know. Then what is the problem? She pulled an old green cardigan from a packing box left near the door. The problem is that you decided the version of me you married needed improving. That isn't what I did. Then why didn't you ask? He had no answer. Emily held up the cardigan. My father bought this for me the winter before he died. He thought the color was too bright. I loved it because he was wrong. Adrienne looked toward the storage boxes. Her voice softened, but not her boundary. You can give me anything you want. Flowers, books, a ridiculous car if that makes you happy. But you do not get to decide who I become inside it. The room went still. Instead of answering resistance with authority, Adrienne heard what she was actually saying. He had treated generosity like command. I should have asked. Emily blinked. I'll have everything returned. No. Now he looked confused. She touched the sleeve of a cream silk blouse. Some of this is beautiful. I'm not wearing it because I'm angry. I'm rejecting the decision. He understood. At least he thought he did. That evening, Emily restored her own clothes to the wardrobe and kept 3 of the new pieces because she actually liked them. Adrienne did not comment. The next morning, Marcus found him standing by the conference room windows. I need you to do something. Marcus waited. Adrienne spoke as if asking the most unreasonable question of his career. What does Emily actually like to wear? Marcus stared at him. What? Nothing. That was not nothing. Marcus cleared his throat. You want me to ask your wife? No, she'll know, I asked. So, what do you want? Pay attention. Colors, fabrics, designers, anything she mentions. You could ask her yourself. Adrienne gave him a look. Marcus nodded. Right too advanced. As he turned away, Adrienne's phone lit with a foundation notification. Vanessa Whitmore had scheduled Emily for her first formal wardrobe consultation. Adrienne glanced at the message, unaware that someone else had already decided exactly what Emily should believe about the body wearing those clothes. The first appointment took place in a salon above Oak Street, where the mirrors were taller than doors, and every glass shelf held something that cost more than Emily's first car. Vanessa greeted her with 2 stylists and a smile. We need to build a public wardrobe, she said. Pieces that photograph well. Emily ran her fingers over a bolt of emerald silk. This is beautiful. It would look wonderful with your coloring, the younger stylist said. Vanessa gave a soft laugh. Color is the easy part. Structure matters more on camera. Adrienne's world is unforgiving. The sentence sounded practical. That was why it worked. A week later, Adrienne sent Emily an emerald silk dress. She opened the box alone and knew at once how he had chosen it. He had remembered the dress skimmed her waist without squeezing it and moved cleanly over her hips. She stood before the floor-to-ceiling mirror and smiled. Then her phone buzzed. A photograph filled the screen. Emily was stepping from a car beside Adrienne after a foundation luncheon. Someone had circled her body in red. Below it, Moretti married down in every sense. Another image arrived, placing Vanessa beside Adrienne at an old gala next to a photograph of Emily after the wedding. The caption asked which woman looked like she belonged. Emily's stomach tightened. Vanessa called less than a minute later. "I'm sorry," she said. "I told them to delete it." "Who is them?" "Bored wives, donors, people who have known Adrian for years. Why are you sending this to me? So you don't walk into a room unprepared." Emily looked toward the mirror. The emerald dress suddenly felt louder. "If a dress makes you uncomfortable," Vanessa said gently, "return it." The next morning, the emerald silk went back. Adrian assumed the fit was wrong. The second dress was burgundy velvet. He had heard Emily tell Marcus that velvet was one of the few fabrics that became more interesting with age. Argonne, she tried it on. Argonne, she liked it. At a foundation planning meeting, Vanessa stood behind Emily while a photographer tested lighting. Turned slightly. Better? Emily glanced back. "Why? Straight on angles can be cruel." One volunteer laughed awkwardly. Vanessa continued, "Especially in velvet. It catches everything." That evening, Emily returned the dress. The third was champagne satin. The fourth was black crepe. The fifth was sapphire chiffon. Each arrived without a note because Adrian did not know how to write the sort of message that belonged inside a dress box. Emily had begun understanding the language anyway. Emerald meant I listened. Velvet meant I remembered. Sapphire meant. I noticed that made returning them hurt more. At night, she sometimes touched the empty spaces in her closet and wondered whether she was rejecting Adrian or protecting him. Vanessa made sure she chose the second explanation. At a private lunch in the Gold Coast, she slid her phone across the table. A message thread was open. Emily saw laughing emojis, photographs, comments about her body, jokes about Adrian trying to dress up the help. She pushed the phone back. "I don't want to read this. You should know what people are saying." "No, I really shouldn't." Vanessa watched her. "Emily, you think I enjoy showing you this?" "I don't know what you enjoy." For the first time, Vanessa's expression hardened. Then it softened again. "I am trying to protect Adrian's position." There it was. Not Emily's feelings. Adrian's position. "The board vote is coming," Vanessa continued. "They already think the marriage was rushed. They study every photograph, every appearance, every rumor." Emily went still. "You think my body is hurting him?" Vanessa paused just long enough to make the answer worse. "I think his enemies will use anything they can." Emily carried those words home. That night, Adrienne returned after midnight and found her asleep on the sofa with a restoration manual open across her chest. A designer box sat unopened on the coffee table. The sixth dress, midnight blue. He had ordered after hearing Emily say, "The color made winter feel elegant." For a moment, Adrian watched her sleep. He could have woken her. Instead, he draped a blanket over her and went to his office. The next morning, the box was gone. By afternoon, Marcus placed the return receipt on his desk. Adrian stared at it. "6, Marcus said. "I can count. Maybe stop buying dresses." Adrian looked up. "You learned she doesn't like having decisions made for her." Marcus said, "You might be trying to say something with gifts that would be easier to say with words." "What exactly would I say?" Marcus almost smiled. "That sounds like a question for your wife." Adrian ignored him. Across the city, Vanessa sat alone in her foundation office with the blinds closed, her phone lit with a secure message. Unknown. "Did she return it?" Vanessa typed back. "Yes, the 6th. A response appeared. "Good. Keep pushing." Her fingers hovered over the screen. Then another message arrived. He needs to look unstable before the board vote. Vanessa deleted the exchange. She opened a folder containing photographs of Emily, foundation seating charts, and copies of internal scheduling records no image consultant should have possessed. That evening, Emily received the Langham fitting schedule. At the bottom was a note from Vanessa, private session. "No, Adrian." Emily stared at the words, uneasy, without knowing why. And somewhere inside the Moretti organization, the returned had stopped being about clothing, long before either husband or wife understood what they were really being used to accomplish. 3 nights later, the Moretti Foundation Gala filled the Chicago Cultural Center with white orchids, string music, and old money. Outside, wet streets shone beneath the lamps. Emily arrived beside Adrienne in a tailored black suit of her own choosing. She had left the sapphire gown in its box. Adrienne noticed, but said nothing. That restraint mattered more than Emily expected. Inside the ballroom, Vanessa moved through donors with a tablet in one hand and a flawless smile on her face. She wore silver and looked exactly like the kind of woman every society photographer knew how to frame. When Emily approached, Vanessa's eyes traveled over the black suit. "You changed the look. I changed my mind. The gown was approved. I wasn't." Vanessa's smile tightened for half a second. "Of course." Adrian was pulled away almost immediately by 2 board members and a state senator. Emily watched him disappear into a ring of dark suits, then followed a hostess toward the seating chart. Her place card was not beside Adrian. It was 3 tables back near the service corridor. Emily stopped. There must be a mistake. The hostess looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Whitmore made the final adjustments. Vanessa appeared as if summoned. "There was a donor conflict," she said. "I moved a few people. Adrienne's wife." Vanessa lowered her voice. "Emily, tonight is complicated. The board is watching everything. This table is quieter, safer." Emily understood the word he. She sat anyway. For 10 minutes, she listened to people discuss tax shelters, museum boards, and summer homes on Nantucket. No one asked what she did. Then a silver-haired donor named Charles Benton glanced at her black suit and smiled politely. "Are you with catering?" The woman beside him hid a laugh. "No, I'm Emily Moretti." Charles's face changed at once. "Oh, Adrian's wife." Vanessa, standing behind the table, stepped in. "Emily prefers comfort," she said lightly. "Formal wear can be difficult when designers don't really build for everybody." A few people laughed, not loudly. It made it worse. Emily looked down at her hands. For 1 second, she was 16 again in a fitting room, being told her size belonged somewhere else. Then a fork stopped halfway to someone's mouth. The room had gone quieter. Emily looked up. Adrian was walking toward her. He had left the senator mid-sentence. His expression was calm, which in the Moretti world meant something had gone wrong. He stopped beside Emily's chair. "Why are you sitting here?" Vanessa answered first. There was a last-minute seating issue. Adrian looked at the place card, then at Vanessa. "My wife sits beside me." "Adrian, the chart is locked. We have press placements, donor hierarchy, then change the chart." No one laughed now. Adrian pulled Emily's chair back himself. She looked up at him. "You don't have to make a scene." "I'm not." His voice was low enough for only her to hear. "I'm correcting one." He offered his hand. Emily hesitated. Then she took it. They crossed the ballroom together. At the head table, Adrian replaced the card beside his own, with Emily's. Vanessa had no choice but to watch. A board member leaned toward Adrian. "Your wife works in fashion, correct?" Emily opened her mouth. Adrian answered before she could. "She restores historic garments and textiles." Then he looked at Emily, as if realizing he had spoken for her. He shifted. "Tell him." The invitation surprised her. Emily described Lucia's gowns and the restoration methods needed to preserve them without erasing their history. The board member stopped looking at her clothes and started asking real questions. Soon another donor joined them, then another. Adrien listened. He did not interrupt once. Later, the ballroom screens showed the restored Moretti pieces had generated the evening's largest pledges. Adrien lifted his glass. These numbers exist because Emily knew what the rest of us were too impatient to see. The words landed harder than any compliment about beauty could have. Emily turned toward him. For the first time that evening, she forgot about the suit. Across the room, Vanessa did not. Her face remained composed, but one hand tightened around the stem of her champagne glass. Michael Whitmore, her father, approached quietly. He was silver-haired, soft-spoken, and used to making dangerous decisions sound reasonable. "You pushed too hard," he murmured. Vanessa did not look at him. She was supposed to stay small. She just became visible. Vanessa's jaw tightened at the end of the gala. Emily stepped into the corridor outside the ballroom to retrieve her coat. Two stylists stood near the service elevator. Vanessa joined them. Emily stopped before they saw her. One stylist whispered, "Adrien made her look untouchable tonight." Vanessa gave a short laugh. "Enjoy tonight?" Emily's breath caught. Vanessa continued. "Once the files come out, Adrien will wish he'd never put her beside him." The elevator doors opened. The three women stepped inside. Emily stayed in the empty corridor, staring at the closing doors. Files, not photographs, not dresses. Files. For the first time, humiliation gave way to something colder. Fear. She almost turned back toward the ballroom to find Adrien. Then she stopped. What if Vanessa was baiting her? What if telling Adrien made her sound paranoid, just as the board judged his stability? Emily looked toward the ballroom doors where warm music and applause spilled into the hall. She said nothing, and that silence would soon cost them both. For 2 days, Emily carried Vanessa's warning everywhere. Files. She heard the word at her studio, in the elevator home, and across the breakfast table, while Adrien scanned reports and drank cold coffee. More than once, she almost told him. Each time she imagined how thin it would sound without proof. The board vote was closing around Adrien. Calls followed him from room to room, exhaustion showing around his eyes. So Emily stayed quiet. Adrien noticed. "You've been somewhere else all morning." "I'm right here." "That isn't what I meant." She managed a small smile. "I have a fitting this afternoon at the Langham with Vanessa." Her fingers tightened around her cup. "You don't have to go," he said. "I know." "Then why go?" "Because avoiding every room she walks into gives her more power than I want her to have." Adrien studied her, then nodded. "Call if you want me there. Not if you need me. If you want me." Emily carried that sentence to the hotel. The Langham's fitting floor glowed with warm gold light, while rain tapped the windows. At the center of a gown rack hung the midnight blue dress. Vanessa stepped from behind a mirrored screen. "You returned it?" "Yes." Adrian had it sent back. Emily touched the sleeve. It is beautiful. Vanessa watched her in this mirror. Beautiful fabric doesn't guarantee a beautiful result. Emily's hand fell precise enough to wound. Why do you keep doing that? Emily asked. Doing what? Making every sentence sound like advice while hoping it hurts. The stylist fell silent. Vanessa's smile thinned. I am preparing you for reality. No, you are choosing which reality I'm allowed to see. Vanessa folded her arms. Fine. Every time Adrienne buys you one of these dresses, people laugh harder. Emily went still. They compare you to women who used to stand beside him. You mean women like you? Vanessa's eyes sharpened. I mean women who understand what his world expects. Emily turned toward the mirror. If you keep forcing yourself into rooms that were not built for you, Vanessa said, eventually he pays the price. Outside the suite, footsteps stopped. Adrienne had arrived early after learning her 6th return, came back to the hotel. Now he stood beside the half-closed door. You can return every dress he buys you, sweetheart, Vanessa said. Fab brick doesn't change what people see when you walk into a room beside Adrienne Moretti. Adrienne's expression hardened. Every picture becomes ammunition. Emily said, I know. Those 2 words hit Adrienne harder than the insult. She believed it, not because she hated the dresses, but because someone had taught her to hate what she imagined they revealed. Vanessa moved closer. There was a private group chat. Board wives, donors, people close to the family. Emily looked at her. What group chat? The one Adrienne can never know you saw. Outside, Adrienne went still. Show me. Vanessa unlocked her phone and read names. Mrs. Benton, Laura Finch, 2 foundation donors, a board member's wife, a photographer Vanessa often hired. Then came the comments. She needs a more forgiving silhouette. He should keep her away from press lines. Not every trend is for everybody. Emily's eyes filled. Enough. Vanessa lowered the phone. I tried to warn you. No. Emily's voice had changed. You curated this. Emily understood. Vanessa had not found cruelty. She had collected it and delivered it piece by piece. Emily looked at the gown. I loved every dress, Despa. The emerald one, the velvet, the sapphire. This one too. Then why return them? Emily let out a broken laugh. Because I thought if I stopped trying to stand beside him, people would stop using me to humiliate him. Outside the door, Adrian closed his eyes. 6 returned boxes he had mistaken for rejection. 6 times Emily had been trying to disappear for his sake. Vanessa softened her voice. Then keep doing the smart thing. Adrian almost entered. Then Vanessa glanced at her phone. There is more. What? The group chat is not what you should be worried about. Adrian's anger became something colder. Once the files are released, none of this will matter anyway. Emily froze. What files? A stylist entered before Vanessa could answer. Adrian stepped away unseen. That evening, Emily returned to the penthouse and found the midnight blue gown waiting on the sofa. Adrian stood by the windows. Just him. Did you ever hate any of them? He asked. She knew immediately. You heard? Yes. How much? Enough. Emily looked away. Did you ever hate the dresses? No. The answer cracked something open. I loved them, she said. That was the problem. No, Adrian replied. The problem was that someone convinced you liking them made you dangerous to me. I thought I was protecting you. From what? From being laughed at because of me. Adrian stared at her. Emily, the only thing that embarrasses me is that you thought you had to disappear to protect me." Tears slipped down her face. He pushed the box toward her. "Return every dress I ever buy you if you want." Emily looked up. "But don't return yourself." Silence filled the penthouse. Then Adrian asked, "What did Vanessa mean by files?" "I don't know. I can remove her from the Foundation tonight." "No, she target—" "I know. That is enough." Emily stepped closer. "If you destroy everyone who hurts me, I will never know whether I can stand up without you." For a man built around control, restraint was the hardest thing she could ask. Finally, Adrian nodded. "Then tell me what you want." Emily looked at the midnight blue gown. "I want to find out what those files are." Adrian's expression changed. For the first time, they were no longer standing on opposite sides of the problem. The next morning, Emily returned to the Moretti Foundation archive, beneath the Lake Forest estate. The room was cool and windowless, lined with garment racks and steel tables. Adrian had cleared everyone else out. "No Vanessa," Emily said. "No Vanessa. No security standing over me. They're outside the floor." That earned him a small smile. For the first hour, Emily worked through pieces logged under Vanessa's department. Most were exactly what they should have been. Documented loans, gala exhibits, formal returns. Then she opened a charcoal dinner jacket donated by one of Adrienne's uncles. Her hands stopped. "What?" Adrienne asked. "The lining." He came closer. Emily ran a finger along the interior seam. "This silk is newer than the jacket." "How much newer?" "Years." She checked the inventory sheet. "This garment is listed as never having left permanent storage." Adrienne's face hardened. Emily picked up a seam ripper. "May I?" "It's yours." "No," she said quietly. "It's evidence now." He understood. "Do it." She slipped the blade beneath 3 stitches. The thread came free too easily. "This wasn't repaired by a conservator," Emily said. "How can you tell?" "Wrong tension, wrong thread weight, and this pattern is industrial." She opened the lining, just enough to reach inside. A black micro-storage card slid onto the steel table. Neither of them spoke. Adrian called Marcus. Within minutes, the card was sealed and taken to a secure workstation. Emily stayed in the archive, already pulling the next garment listed under Vanessa's signature. A midnight tuxedo coat, another replaced lining, another card, then a silk evening cape, a third. By noon, they had found 7. Marcus returned. "These aren't photos." Adrian took the device. "What are they?" "Security schedules, vehicle routes, internal vendor lists, offshore company names. Some are months old, some are from last week." Someone had been using the Foundation archive as a dead drop system. Not emails, not cloud servers, garments, objects no security team expected to search. Emily stared at the opened jacket. "If I hadn't checked the lining, you did," Adrian said. "That matters more." For most of Emily's life, people had treated her work like decoration. That same skill was exposing a breach inside one of Chicago's most protected organizations. She pulled another inventory folder. Vanessa signed these transfers. Marcus nodded. "Every garment we found passed through her office." "That's too obvious," Emily said. Adrian turned. "If she's smart enough to hide data in clothing, why sign every movement with her own credentials?" Marcus frowned. Emily spread the paperwork across the table. "She either wants to be caught, or someone wants us to stop looking after we find her name." Adrian's eyes sharpened. "Keep going." They worked until late afternoon. At 4:16, Emily found what she needed. Adrian. She pointed to a timestamp. A garment had been checked out under Vanessa's credentials at 8:43 p.m. So Marcus asked. Emily searched the Foundation's social feed. A photograph filled the screen. Vanessa stood at a charity gala in Boston beneath a dated event banner. 8:41 p.m., 2 minutes before the archive access. Marcus stared. She couldn't have been here. No, she was in front of hundreds of people and cameras. Adrian went very still. Coincidental clone? Marcus asked. Maybe, Emily said, or someone with administrative override. She examined the stitching again. The thread had a faint waxed finish and a precise repeating spacing. She had seen it before, not in couture, not in hand restoration. Somewhere else, Adrian noticed her expression. What is it? I know this stitch. From where? I don't know yet. He waited. A month earlier, he would have ordered others to solve it. Now, he trusted her to think. Give me the original transfer records, Emily said. Marcus handed them over. She worked until her shoulders ached. Adrian stayed nearby without rushing her. At 7, he placed a sandwich beside her. Emily looked at it. Cold food is better than no dinner. I remember things. She smiled, despite herself. Then the archive door opened. Daniel Price entered, tie loosened, phone in hand. We have a problem. Adrian looked up. What kind? The board moved another emergency session forward. Michael Whitmore is arguing the leak proves your security failures are becoming a corporate liability. Emily's eyes went to the cards. Does he know we found these? He knows something was found. From whom Daniel hesitated. Only 6 people were told. Adrian's face went cold. Emily felt the same unease she had felt in the Langham hallway. The group chat the files, the false timestamp, the dresses. They were not separate threads anymore. Someone had been pulling them toward the same knot, Daniel added. One of tomorrow's convoy routes appeared on a copied file recovered from the archive. Adrian looked at Marcus. Change everything. Already doing it. Emily lifted the jacket toward the light. A strange industrial stitch caught the glow, and suddenly memory moved. A grey warehouse uniform. A factory label she had repaired years ago for a theatre production. She whispered, I've seen this before. Adrian stepped closer. Where? Before she could answer, Marcus's phone rang. He listened for 3 seconds, then looked at Adrian. All vehicles are being rerouted. A pause. His face drained of colour, except one already left lower. The room went silent, and somewhere beneath downtown Chicago, a Moretti convoy was driving straight into a route their enemy already knew. Adrian moved first. Who's in the vehicle? Marcus checked his phone. Daniel. Daniel Price had left the estate less than 20 minutes earlier, with 2 security cars carrying copies of the archive evidence to a separate legal office downtown. Adrian was already dialing. No answer. Emily watched his face change, not panic. Something tighter. The look of a man who had spent his life preparing for betrayal, and still hated being right. Call the lid car. Marcus tried. Nothing. Then his phone rang. He answered and turned away. Emily heard only fragments. Tunnel. Rear vehicle. Impact. Ambulance. Marcus ended the call. Daniel is alive. Adrian's shoulders loosened by half an inch. Injuries. Concussion. Broken arm. They're taking him to Northwestern, and the attacker's gone before police reach the tunnel. Emily gripped the edge of the steel table. The convoy route had been changed that morning. Only a handful of people knew. Yet someone had known exactly where Daniel would be. Adrienne looked at the storage cards. No one leaves this floor until every device is checked. The order moved through the building. By midnight, the archive had become an investigation room. Laptops, Access logs, security reports, and encrypted drives covered the tables where Emily had spent the morning examining silk. The softness of clothing had disappeared beneath the weight of suspicion. One of Adrienne's senior men, Carlo Bianche, placed a laptop in the center of the table. Emily recognized it immediately. Hers? She frowned. Why is that here? Carlo did not answer her. He looked at Adrienne. The root file that led to the attack was transmitted at 3:12 this afternoon. From where? Adrienne asked. Carlo turned to the screen. The Penthouse Network. Emily felt cold. Marcus stepped closer. What device? Carlo's expression hardened. Mrs. Moretti's laptop. Silence fell. Emily stared at the screen. That's impossible. Carlo opened another report. Her login, her device ID, her encrypted credentials. I was here at 3:12. Carlo nodded. Your laptop was not. Emily remembered leaving it on the desk in the penthouse study before coming to Lake Forest. One of the capos muttered, Convenient. Adrienne looked at him. The man went quiet. Carlo continued. There is more. Copies of the same data were found in a hidden folder on her machine. Emily's pulse thudded. I never downloaded those files. Then someone did. I didn't. Another man leaned forward. She discovered the cards. She had access to the garments. She knew we were changing routes. Emily stared at him. 3 months earlier. Most of these men barely knew her name. Now they were looking at her as if her marriage had been camouflaged. Adrienne said, Enough. Carlo did not back down. We have a responsibility to ask the question. Ask it. Was she brought into the family because someone wanted her close to you? Emily flinched. The sentence struck harder than she expected. Not because she believed it, because everyone else might. Carlo pointed at the laptop. Put her somewhere secure until we know. Emily's eyes went to Adrienne. For one terrible second, he said nothing. Then he walked to the table and closed the laptop. She found the breach before any of you knew it existed. Carlo's jaw tightened. That does not clear her. No, evidence clears her. Adrienne's voice remained calm. So start with evidence, not your fear. No one spoke. Emily looked at him, and something inside her steadied. He was not defer, because she was his wife. He was demanding they treat her like everyone else should have been treated from the beginning, as someone whose actions mattered. Marcus entered, carrying another report. There was remote access on Emily's laptop. Carlo looked up from where? Masked. Can you trace it? Not quickly. Adrienne studied the room. Someone inside the organization had framed Emily, which meant whoever controlled Vanessa's credentials also understood Moretti security well enough to redirect suspicion. Adrienne turned to Emily. You're leaving? The steadiness she had just found disappeared. What? You're going back to your studio? Carlo looked relieved. Emily did not. You said you trusted the evidence. I do. Then why are you sending me away? Adrienne glanced around the room. Because one of these men might be involved. Because whoever had accessed her computer knew where she slept. Because Daniel had nearly died after carrying evidence. He could not say any of that in front of people he no longer trusted. You'll have security. Emily stared at him. That is not an answer. It is the only one I can give you right now. Her face changed. You asked me to stand beside you. I know. And now that they think I betrayed you, I'm being removed from the room. No, that is exactly what this looks like. Adrienne lowered his voice. Emily, please. The word stopped her. She had never heard him use it like that, but hurt had already taken hold. Fine. She picked up her coat. I'll go. At the door, she turned. I hope whatever you cannot tell me is worth making me feel disposable again. Then she left. Adrian stood very still. Marcus waited until the door closed. You should have told her. I couldn't. You could have told her something. Adrian looked toward Carlo and the other men, not with the leak standing in this room. At the studio, Emily dismissed the security detail to the sidewalk and locked herself inside. Snow had begun falling over the theatre district. Her machine sat silent beneath dim lights. For the first time since meeting Adrian, the studio felt small. She removed her coat and stared at the archive photographs she had copied earlier. The industrial stitching, wrong thread, repeated spacing, waxed finish. She spread the images across the cutting table. Think not like Adrian, not like security, like a restorer. She enlarged one photograph until the stitch pattern filled the screen. Then memory returned. 5 years earlier, a theatre company had brought in old military-style uniforms for repair. The pieces had come from a closed Midwestern manufacturer whose machines produced a distinctive double-lock stitch. Emily opened an old supplier folder, page after page. Then she found the logo, a black W inside a silver shield. Her breath stopped. Whitmore Uniform Works, Milwaukee. She searched the archived manufacturer notes, former owner Michael Whitmore. Emily sat back slowly. Vanessa's father, Adrian's longtime advisor, the man who had pushed the board vote forward, the man who had known the Moretti family for nearly 20 years. On the table, the pattern suddenly made sense. Vanessa had been involved, but someone else had built the system. Someone older, closer, someone everyone trusted enough not to question. Emily reached for her phone, then stopped. If Michael had framed her, he would be watching Adrian. Maybe he would be watching her too. She looked toward a garment rack in the corner. One of the returned gowns still hung there, waiting to be catalogued before shipment. A dress Vanessa herself had once insisted Emily send back. Emily crossed the room. She touched the lining. The stitch beneath her fingers was familiar, industrial, precise. Wrong. Emily picked up her seam ripper, and for the first time, she was no longer trying to prove she was innocent. She was about to find out who had decided she would look guilty. Emma slid the seam ripper beneath the lining and cut one stitch at a time. The gown was one Vanessa had rejected weeks earlier, calling the cut too ambitious for Emily's figure. Emily had sent it back to the studio because one shoulder seam needed repair. Now beneath the silk lining, she found the same waxed thread. Her hands went cold. She opened 3 in of the seam. A micro-storage card dropped onto the table. Emily locked the door, pulled the blinds, and used an isolated reader. The card contained shipping scans, access copies, and one audio file. She clicked it. Static filled the room. Then Vanessa's voice. You told me this was about destabilizing Adrian before the vote. Michael Whitmore answered, It is. No, you used my credentials. You never said you were selling security routes. Michael remained calm. You wanted Adrian weak enough to need us. I wanted Emily gone. The words still hurt. Vanessa continued. I humiliated her. I fed her every ugly comment I could find. I made sure she thought she was embarrassing him. That was the agreement. Then Michael said, And you were useful. Vanessa's voice sharpened. Where the board needs a clean story. What does that mean? Adrian married an outsider. Security collapsed. His wife leaked files. The foundation director failed to control the damage. You're blaming me too. Vanessa whispered. I'm giving the board people they can remove. And then they need someone experienced to stabilize the companies. Emily stopped the recording. For a moment, only snow brushed the windows. Vanessa had chosen cruelty, trying to make another woman smaller out of jealousy and status. But Michael had built a strategy around it. Emily reopened the supplier record. Whitmore Uniform Works, Milwaukee. The old company had produced uniforms and ceremonial garments. Its double-lock machines used the same waxed thread hidden inside the foundation pieces. Michael had the machinery. Vanessa had garment access. And as a trusted Moretti advisor, Michael could move through systems no one questioned. Emily photographed the stitching and called Adrian. I'm safe. I found the person behind Vanessa. Who? Michael Whitmore. Silence. She explained the factory, the thread, the card, and the recording. When she finished, Adrienne said, Send me everything. I will, but don't arrest him. Emily, listen. He did. If Michael knows we found him, he destroys what he can and calls the board before we control the evidence. I can have him contained in 20 minutes. And prove what? And that Adrian Moretti panics when his advisor is accused. Adrian went quiet. He framed me because he expects you to react like a husband protecting his wife, instead of a man following evidence. What are you asking? Let him think he's winning. He put you in the middle of this. He already thinks I'm isolated. You are not. What do you need? The original Foundation access logs, Daniel's convoy orders, Vanessa's Boston Gala footage, every board message Michael sent in the last 48 hours. You'll have them. And Adrian, yes, I'm not asking permission. A pause. I know. Marcus arrived with encrypted copies. He looked at the open gown. You found all this in a dress. Emily lifted the card. People see what they're trained to value. No one trained us to look at seams. That was Michael's mistake. They worked through the night. The evidence formed a clean line. Michael's old network altered garments after Foundation transfers. Vanessa's credentials moved the pieces, but overrides traced to Michael's office. Whitmore linked vendors received payments after leaked Moretti routes were sold. The files planted on Emily's laptop came through a maintenance credential tied to Michael. At 2:13 a.m., Marcus's phone lit. Emergency board meeting. When? Tomorrow. Blackstone Hotel, 4 p.m. He turned the screen toward her. Temporary removal of Adrian Moretti from executive authority pending security review. Michael was moving before they could. Adrian arrived before dawn, snow-dusting his black coat. Emily expected orders. Instead, he stood across the cutting table. I should have trusted you with more before I sent you here. You trusted me when everyone else wanted me locked away. I also made the choice for you. Yes, I'm sorry. Emily nodded. Then do better tomorrow. A faint smile touched his mouth. You have a plan? She placed 3 evidence folders on the table. No, we have a plan. By noon, Vanessa was under legal supervision. Vanessa. Faced with the recording and Michael's attempt to sacrifice her, she agreed to authenticate her voice and the hidden transfers. From the hospital, Daniel preserved her statement separately from her own misconduct. Vanessa asked to speak with Emily. Emily said, No, not yet. Knowing Vanessa had been used did not erase what Vanessa had chosen to do. At 3:15, Emily returned to the penthouse. The midnight blue gown waited in its box. She opened the lid. The fabric caught the winter light like deep water. She touched the sleeve, not because Adrian had bought it, not because Vanessa hated it, because Emily had loved it before anyone taught her that loving how she looked was something to apologize for. Her phone rang. Marcus. They moved the vote up. Michael wants it started the moment Adrian arrives. How much time? Maybe 40 minutes. Emily looked at herself in the mirror, then at the gown. I loved this dress before they taught me to be afraid of it. She lifted it from the box at the Blackstone Hotel. Michael Whitmore stood before the Moretti board, with a prepared removal resolution in his hand, and the vote had already begun. Adrian entered the ballroom alone. Michael stood beside a screen, showing the convoy attack and Emily's laptop. A rushed marriage, a breach inside his home. Intelligence transmitted from his wife's device, he said. I move for temporary removal of Adrian Moretti from executive authority. Hands began to rise. Then the ballroom doors opened. Emily stood beneath the archway in the midnight blue gown. The fabric moved around her like deep water. She wore no apology. Adrian stood. He did not cross the room to rescue her. He simply pulled out the empty chair beside him. Emily walked to it herself. Mrs. Moretti, this is a closed board session. I know you are under investigation. Emily placed an evidence case on the table. Then you should hear what I found. Adrian said she has the floor. Photographs of opened garment linings appeared on the screen. These micro-storage cards were hidden inside clothing, moved through the Moretti Foundation. Every altered seam used the same industrial double-lock stitch. A board member frowned. And that proves what? That whoever built the system expected security experts to look at computers, not clothes. She enlarged the stitching. I recognized the pattern from uniforms I repaired years ago. Whitmore Uniform Works, Milwaukee. Michael went still. The company belonged to Michael Whitmore, Emily said. That factory closed years ago. The public company did. She displayed vendor payments. The machinery did not. Emily continued. Vanessa's credentials moved the garments. She joined the sabotage and spent months convincing me. My body made Adrian look weak. Michael smiled faintly. A family quarrel is not evidence. No, Emily said. She pressed play. Vanessa's recorded voice filled the ballroom. You told me this was about destabilizing Adrian before the vote. Then Michael's voice answered. You wanted Adrian weak enough to need us. The recording revealed his plan to sacrifice Vanessa, frame Emily, and replace Adrian. When it ended, Michael said, recordings can be altered. A screen flickered to life. Daniel Price appeared from his hospital room, one arm in a sling. Which is why the original file, metadata, transfer records, and payment trail were independently preserved. Michael turned toward Adrian. You expect them to believe your wife found what security missed? Adrian looked at Emily. Yes. Emily placed the last report down. Daniel's route was sent through my laptop, using a credential tied to a Whitmore-controlled vendor. Michael built a chain where every clue stopped one person before him. She looked directly at Michael. Even my insecurity was useful. The more isolated I became, the easier it was to make me look like someone who never belonged here. Michael's face hardened. You never belonged here. Months earlier, those words might have broken her. Now Emily nodded. You were counting on me believing that. Michael pushed back his chair and moved toward the doors. They did not open. 2 security officers stood outside. Emily said, copies of the evidence are already with independent legal counsel. His eyes narrowed. You planned this? Yes. Daniel's legal team had already forwarded the evidence to authorities, and Michael's company access was suspended. His plan ended through records and the profession he had considered too insignificant to notice. Vanessa was removed from the foundation and ordered to cooperate. When someone argued Michael had manipulated her, Emily answered quietly. He used her. That does not erase what she chose to do. Adrian asked, "What do you want for her?" "Consequences, not destruction. I want her to build a life without making another woman smaller, just to feel bigger." The vote against Adrian was withdrawn. Before the meeting ended, an older board member raised his glass to Adrian Moretti. Adrian shook his head. No. He stood and looked at Emily. "Do not congratulate me for standing beside the person who saved us. She was not lifted into this room by my name. She walked into it with evidence every one of us missed." Emily did not look down. 1 month later, a new sign hung above her studio, Carter House. Emily expanded it into an evening wear line for many body types, with paid training for women who could not afford fashion school. Adrian invested only after Emily put a complete business plan on his desk. He read every page and asked questions. That mattered more than the check. At the studio's first gala, a reporter asked who chose her gown. Emily smiled. "I did." Later, Adrian found her in the cutting room. "My family taught me money solved problems," he said. "If you gave enough, you did not have to ask what someone needed. You're getting better at asking. Slowly, that still counts. I used to think protecting someone meant removing every threat. And now, trusting them to choose how they face it." Emily reached for his hand. "I never needed you to buy me a world." "I know. I needed you to believe I could build one." "I do." Weeks later, Carter House held its first runway show. Women of different sizes and ages walked beneath white lights in dresses designed to fit bodies, not erase them. Adrian sat in the front row backstage. Emily watched a nervous young model smile at herself in the mirror. She remembered 6 returned boxes. Adrian appeared beside her. "Can I ever buy you a dress again?" Emily laughed. "Maybe, but next time we're shopping together." On the runway, another woman stepped into the light without making herself smaller. The thing Emily needed permission to keep had never been the dress. It was herself. If this story touched you, leave a comment. Emily Carter once returned 6 dresses because she believed being seen beside Adrian Moretti would only give people another reason to tear him down. In the end, she walked into the Blackstone ballroom, wearing the midnight blue gown she had chosen for herself, and proved that the woman everyone tried to make smaller was the one who saw the betrayal no one else could. Real love does not begin when someone rescues you from every problem. It begins when they respect your strength enough to stand beside you while you face it. Adrian changed when he stopped deciding for Emily and started trusting what she could do. So today, think about one person in your life whose choices you may be trying to make for them. Give them the kind of respect Adrian finally gave Emily. Listen first, trust their judgment, and let them show you who they are. Have you ever had to reclaim a part of yourself after someone convinced you to hide it? Tell me in the comments, and stay with me, because the next story begins with another woman, everyone underestimated, and one moment that changes the balance of power completely.